Dan, welcome to the Maverick Mindsets podcast. It's been a while since we've last chatted, and I wanted to get you onto the podcast because, in my view, you are a maverick from the corporate world, and we're going to dip into what that means in a moment and talk through what entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship is and how they kind of overlap. But perhaps first, just explain kind of your background, your job, your mission currently.
Well, thanks for having me first. I never thought I'd be considered a maverick, so appreciate it. I know we've been trying to get this chat in for a while, so I appreciate you inviting me here. So bit of flavour to what I do. It's all corporate innovation and startup acceleration, mainly in the new venture development space and entrepreneurship. So working with corporates to help their employees to generate new business ventures. And we can go into kind of the drivers for that, but they bring us in to bring in that innovative culture, help teams inside of the corporate to build new ideas, take them through the journey there. And then that's pushed me into helping startups on their acceleration journey. So there can be startups who want to work with corporates, so I can add some advice there.
Both ways then, in a sense.
Yeah, so corporates want to work with startups, so there's advice there. And then the startups who are like, how do I get in front of a corporate? How do I even push my business to work with big enterprise? And that's another discussion. And so that's led me into extracurricular stuff. And then I do lots of public speaking. I've been to Africa quite a few times to speak to governments, industry leaders, and young entrepreneurs. And then that's led me round circle to investigating some new startup businesses potentially in the future.
Cool.
So lots of stuff we can dig into.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of intrapreneurship, what is the definition in your mind?
So you can add a bunch of definitions to entrepreneurship. You can call it a corporate rebel, entrepreneur who is getting bored. It's about sparking new ideas inside a business, which allows employees to pick up on their entrepreneurial traits for both the business's benefit and the corporate mindset. And so in essence, entrepreneurship can be very structured. That's what we do. We bring at LMarks, we bring a structure to a corporate program so that they have set gateways and a path to new ventures success, we'll call it.
So there would be some of the processes you put in place to lead people on that kind of journey or educate them in that one. Entrepreneurship.
And we can go into the different bits there, and then, or it can be very spontaneous. So you've heard of the post-it notes at 3M, where a guy was playing with adhesives and it wasn't sticky enough, but it was a little sticky, and then it turned into the post-it notes. That was an entrepreneurial journey. It was an R&D process of the scientists playing with the adhesive, but then in order to conceptualize that and bring it to market, it was very entrepreneurial because it was a new product offering. It was something that the world had not seen at that time, and took a lot of blue ocean thinking to then bring that to market. So entrepreneurial because he was leading that project as part of a wider team. So that's entrepreneurship. And in terms of what we bring to the table, or someone like me when we go into a corporate, it's either a corporate has an idea box, or they have lots of employees who are coming up to managers with new ideas, and we provide them with a platform to then take all of those ideas and capture them, and then put them on the stage in front of leadership and give them the proper space to be creative and tell those ideas in an open forum with no judgment, and then take them through a learning and development course of different topics to do with startup creation. And also align those with the business as usual areas so that they can find a home in the business once they've come out the other side of the development process. And so there's corporate leadership, there's the employees, they're all creating teams, there's a lot of stakeholder management, a lot of politics.
As usual, always politics.
Always. And then you've got someone like me who's in the middle, being part team member, because you have to help them on the journey of building this startup within the business. And then on the other side, you've got being a advocate for corporate new business generation. So you've got all of these different plates you're spinning. That's the day job.
And do you imagine that, or I would imagine that a lot of new ideas and giving people the ability to think outside the box in a corporate, there's a lot of interest in that. But I guess the way an entrepreneur thinks is fairly dysfunctional and built around curiosity and frustration to make things move quicker. And the balance of getting that mindset into corporate people must be a real challenge. So do most people pick up on it, or are there certain people that just can't get to it mentally? Yeah,
so it's kind of this taught or nurtured behavior, right? So you're talking about the entrepreneur who's always been an entrepreneurial type person, and you do find them in corporates. They're like 1 in 100, right? So if you talk about quantitative, if I get 50 applications, maybe 5 of them are true entrepreneurial characters. But
how do you judge that?
How do you judge it? Well, you can't judge it because it's all in practice. You can't read an application of what's your idea and where do you want to go with this idea from an application. You've got to see them first, their history. So you ask some questions to their management, their wider team members. How do you feel like this person could be if we gave them an opportunity to work with us in the programs? Or you give them a chance because the idea looks promising from a business perspective, and then you see them in action over a period of 2, 3, 4 months.
And you think people can develop along that time and develop entrepreneurial skills for sure, and kind of spring it out into a different way of thinking once you've opened them up to that potential process?
It's never easy. I think that what we would do is give them a toolbox of topics and actions that they can take.
Got it.
So that they can take any idea and apply these different activities and get to a safe point where they can say, this can either go into the business or we spin it out. And at that point in time, once they've done all the validation and understood the concept and basically got it to their first early adopter customers, then they can decide, do we bring in more talent, which is going to be more entrepreneurial, maybe a technology expertise, maybe someone who's coming from a startup perspective.
And you can help put all that together as well.
And we can help put all that together.
And do you find the leadership of the corporate embrace this? Because it must be challenging for them. It's a different way of thinking.
100%.
And you'll get some roadblocks in that area, I suppose, that you've then got to navigate through.
So leadership in a corporate with entrepreneurship, it's a learning journey. So initially you're trying to sell them the idea that they can have a improved, innovative corporate culture, and people coming up with new ideas and, oh, we should do that, and this will be a great addition to our business, either business efficiency or new revenue generation. And then once they've got this idea that their corporate pool can be more innovative, then you've got to sell them on the idea that the employees are going to have 20% less of their business as usual time to then work on something innovative. And the problem we find all the time is that it's business as usual plus 20%.
Yeah. And I suppose that's the challenge in any business, right? It's how you put value on something, because it's not immediate return, but they're almost shaking the tree to see if there's some more value or a new way of doing things. So that innovation they've got to really sponsor that. In I suppose that's what it is. It's sponsoring it internally.
I will give you some vague facts to protect confidentiality, but in terms of the budget and the expenses that are taken to put together an entrepreneurship program and the resources that are taken internally to carve out the time and pull all the pieces together, is a drop in the bucket compared to the over $100 million of untapped revenue that we delivered through these entrepreneurship processes.
And when you go and pitch, you have to give those, you almost got to get them over onto your side to show them where the value is. Because there'll be a lot of people that are skeptical, right? Especially in that corporate leadership team.
Depending on the corporate, you get one senior figure, maybe a CEO or a C-suite, and says, this is a great concept, let's drive it.
Yeah.
And then you use that that bandwidth to then get the rest of the corporate in line. Or you show by success of previous projects. So it's lots of examples and other entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in the corporate coming and saying, this is what I've built. I've went through this process, and you can be exactly like me, or join my team. Be part of the group of entrepreneurs who are building this one idea. And so there's a number of different ways that you can plug it all together. And that's the beauty of each corporate has their own process, their own situations.
And if I think back on my journey in business and employment, let's say, I was in the corporate world, and I sprung out to kind of go off and do my own thing, and it took me a while to kind of find my feet and get success. And I'm sure there's people watching, listening to us now on this podcast thinking, I'm in a corporate job, I like what I do, I've also a burning desire to go and do my own thing. What are some of those, because to go from one side of the fence to the other, what are some of the mindsets or tips and tricks? Because you've seen it all, people do that. So what's the kind of advice you can give them?
It is to really just open your horizons up to not having to shut off the laptop at 5 o'clock. Because if you're working a job and you need the stability to try a new idea, a lot of what I do is corporates backing the ideas so they can work within the boundaries of their job. But say you were going to build your own startup outside and go more entrepreneurial in the nighttime, then you can then go to...
Side hustle is the term.
Side hustle. You can then start to then be open to working in the evenings, joining a course. I work on the Founder Institute quite a lot, and we see hundreds of corporate employees who are then building their startup, their tech startup, in the evenings, and that's why all of the sessions and seminars are 6 till 9 in the evening. Then you validate your idea within a structured accelerator course, and then you can decide after you've got through that whether you want to jump into it or not.
Because I guess if I think when I started, there was none of those services available. So you really were learning, building the plane as you're flying it, kind of thing.
That's the.
Whereas now there's all kind of angel funding, seed funding. There's networks, like you say, where people can go and learn and be amongst other people who are trying to do something similar.
You've got this interesting economy right now where you've got a lot of portfolio work and people that are finding that just one job is not satisfying them, whether it's financially or mindset wise, and they're thinking about what to do. They can either go and get 5 different jobs, which are what they do, but broken up. So you get a lot of fractional revenue officers, fractional this, fractional that. Or you can then start to look at your own idea. So every employee in a business, because they are usually in a siloed function, even to the point of marketing, there's an outbound and an inbound, and they don't do either one. It's just one or the other. Every person in a corporate has different ideas that they're playing around with, or challenges that they're having at work, and they will be thinking to themselves, well, how do I fix this challenge? They can either go to their manager and say, I've got a new tool which can help me with this challenge, or if they don't have that, they can then look at the idea of going out and building it themselves. And that's how a lot of entrepreneurs then go from corporate to startup life. And it's probably something which you and many others have come across is, wouldn't it be great if we had this tool, or if we had this concept which we were using at work? It's not out there, let's go build it. And that's how a lot of entrepreneurs do start. Where the entrepreneurship comes into place is people like the safety net of having a salary, being in a secure environment work-wise, and they can then explore those entrepreneurial traits within the business.
And going back to startups, for example, how do they plug themselves or find a way of getting into a corporate world or a partnership to help them grow their businesses? Because a lot of startups or new businesses need big customers. Big customers are generally corporates, and partnerships can flourish, but it's very daunting if you're out there on your own, pounding the pavement, so to speak, with your new business. to know how to pitch to a corporate to either create a partnership or even get a customer?
So let me think about it in 3 different ways. There is the structured process, and I always bring structure to innovation because that's what I like, is a company like Elmarks or another, there are a few different companies which do it, where we have the access to the corporate who are looking for certain challenges, and a startup can then apply to those challenges because they know that they've got a corporate sponsor who's looking for solutions in that specific area.
Yeah.
And so, my solution's going to be a great fit for that. I'm going to go and apply. And then we take you through that procurement process of piloting and evangelizing the technology within the business. Or you can go the traditional way if we weren't involved, which is have a great network, meet the right people, bang on doors.
Try and get in through the front door
and
somehow.
Kick tires. Yeah. And that's the tough perspective.
Yeah.
But it's the most entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Because you are going out on your own and making your own luck. You're not relying on a company to then open the doors for you.
Yeah.
And I find that's probably something that you can probably come into with that because you've been through that process.
Yeah, I think for me, it's you've got to try and get hold of the right person. You've got to try and identify if they can help you. And also, if it's in that corporate world, what are the other stakeholders, because that's a very corporate term, in that kind of sphere that are going to help them move it all forward. Because quite often someone has a contact in a corporate, great idea, we'll try and help, but then there's so many avenues they've got to go down to move it along, because corporates are very intricate businesses. But a lot of it, I think, comes back to, if you really believe in what you're doing and you believe you can help and you can show that and put it in their world, they've got a much better chance to take it forward. And I've had some very good experiences with corporate people that have helped me get into that retailer in my, because obviously I worked with a lot of retailers generally. And they've been very entrepreneurial thinking, in a corporate world, and seeing things completely differently to the way I would see things.
Yeah.
So those 2 mindsets, bringing them together, there's so much you can learn from a corporate mindset in terms of structure, process, scale, and the entrepreneurial startup, let's say, or scale up even, is still hand to mouth and still driving revenue month on month to pay their wages.
I also find that there's a little tip that I think people should do to build confidence if they're a new entrepreneur. If you're a serial entrepreneur, this will be limited value for you. But if you're a new entrepreneur who's coming into it, it's a thing. I heard it from one of the mentors that we worked with called a pre-mortem, right? So it's a list of every single risk that could possibly go wrong with your business. A lot of people are forward thinking about how great their idea is. The possibilities are endless with my business concept, but they never think about the small little items which can tear everything down.
Yeah.
And these are the sorts of questions from me being a skeptic. I'm naturally skeptical about new ideas until they're validated with data. These are the sorts of questions which a corporate would ask, have you thought about this?
Yeah.
What do you think about that? The first conversation you have, they're asking about certain IT and security questions, which you've never thought about.
No, it's a really good point, actually.
Yeah, having a list of that and then having mitigations to them, or at least an answer, just gives you more confidence. So when you are talking to a corporate or someone in the network who can introduce you to someone like a big enterprise, you're more confident about your idea because you know all of the little bits and pieces which could go wrong.
Yeah,
and I find it's a great tip to do.
It's an interesting one because I think in life, the David and Goliath scenario is Goliath would always want to help David if David asks for help. If David comes into the room and says, I've got all these answers for you, I can do it a lot better, it will put them out of kilter slightly. So I think the ability for entrepreneurs to ask for help and get guidance from a corporate, it's a powerful beast, is one of the ways in. And like you said, it's trying to think of all the things, look at it from their point of view, their world. Things tend to move a lot slower in a corporate than they do in an entrepreneurial business. And processes, compliance, the length of time to do things, get decisions done is always, it's a bit like going and building a house. It's going to cost you, put your budget together and think about how long it's going to take and double your time and double the amount you're going to spend. Because once you get into it, there's always, unless you're very, very lucky, but normally that's the dynamic.
The other thing is when it comes to boring things like accounting and getting paid, as a startup, I provide a service. I'm not getting paid by a corporate for 6 to 9 months.
Yes.
And I've got to have that on my books as a startup.
That's right.
There are things that corporates can do, but that's conversation for another day.
Yeah.
To go on to another point around startups getting involved with corporates is to really just understand the business values that you're offering a corporate, because you can't just say, I've got this AI product, and then go into trying to get a sale from them. It's really about hitting key business drivers, which are in the corporate's mindset. And each corporate is different. So you've really got to pick up on what they're looking for. If it's more productivity, if it's more revenue generation in certain areas, whether it's even green and ESG sort of goals a couple of years ago. This needs to be front in mind in a startup, because you'll be trying to build your product, you'll be trying to make sales, but at the end of the day, people are buying things that are going to fix them.
They are. So in theory, when a startup talks to a corporate, the message you want to try and convey to the corporate is that you understand, I guess, their pain points or opportunities, their risk profile. I think as well, there's a point of trends appearing in the corporate world or in business in general, today's AI, and we talk about that in a second, but it's like the ESG, etc., is looking at the tick boxes or hot buttons of what a corporate's going to prick their ears up to. And on that subject of AI, there's a lot obviously prevalent now in the press and in business speak and in the whole world we all operate in, about how AI is going to influence, change, transform the way business is done, even down to how employers or how people will engage with work in the coming years. What are your thoughts, kind of top line, on some of those opportunities, but also dangers or risks associated with it?
So a lot of the AI that I see is in the B2B space, and AI is not going to be leaving us anytime soon. It's only going to get more and more and more ingrained in how we operate, as in both social and personal and in the workplace. A lot of businesses are using AI to obviously improve efficiency and to automate processes. And that then stems into new revenue generation. A lot of legacy businesses that are very human to human interactions, think about sales and some parts of marketing, you've got insurance and financial services. That's where the big building blocks for AI can really jump into quickly. But then you've got this lack of trust in AI, because I've not seen a corporate so far who's fully automated with AI. Everyone has a human in the loop experience, and I think the question is, how long are we going to have that human in the loop situation with AI before we fully offload certain work areas to AI? And that's something which I don't have an answer for, and I'm yet to see it. Then it leads to a question of what happens to the employees behind that job, which then the AI has then made more efficient, possibly leading to redundancies or a lack of extra headcount in the future. And so these are questions which employers are thinking, oh great, we're saving money, we're making more money even, but then in 20 years time you've got a skeleton crew of 20 people and 80% of the company is AI. And what does that reality look like? Because I don't know.
No, it's an interesting one because there's lots of debate about it. And I read somewhere today that the logic around AI is it will make 3,000 people redundant in the next 5 years. Yeah. However, it will create 3,000 new jobs because I suppose following that logic through is repetitive tasks that can be replaced by AI will free up that person, that employee, to do more productive, deeper thinking tasks potentially. But I don't know. No one really knows how that's going to unfold.
This was something that I remember chatting to you about a few days ago, was what happens to all of those jobs? And you said they go into more creative tasks, but then do you have rooms full of think tank people just sitting around creating new ideas? What happens to, a lot of what is the backbone of economies is those repetitive tasks. And,
yes,
you've got legal lawyers who are now getting replaced by AI, or a lot of their workload is getting replaced by AI, and then they're the human in the loop to then sign that off. Same with accountants, same with sales, every area of business has some element of AI that can come in. But then you end up with, just like in the Industrial Revolution, where you have machinery doing the automation jobs of people on the line, then people become busybodying, right? They find work to do which is unnecessary for growth opportunities, right? And the reality that we could see in the future is you've got so much AI that the economy is just AI buying and paying for AI, right? So you've got AI on one side, AI on the other side. Where is the actual human taking value out of the chain?
Well, I think and if you really extrapolate that out about how society could shift, is we may all get work to a three-day week because the businesses generally become so efficient with technology, AI or whatever, that to create the same value, the human input doesn't need to be as much. Or people then go and have more leisure time, or there's so many ramifications, aren't there? We just don't know about yet.
How do you pay for the leisure time if you don't have a full work week and are being paid properly because AI is doing that? So there's so many threads, and there's many AI experts who have been studying this for years and years who can provide a better opinion than myself. I just know what I see, which is businesses are embracing it, and they are looking for startups who can bring AI in to their businesses to add prediction and other services to their business. So this is very interesting.
So what motivates you?
The deepest question I've been asked this year. What motivates me? A lot of it for me is around empowerment of individuals to create ideas. I'm not just saying that because that's the work stream that I'm in, but I actually get true value out of seeing someone in a business area where they might feel boxed in or doing the same thing every day, and then having them have a creative outlet through entrepreneurship and a learning opportunity where I feel empowered. I feel that they're empowered from me being involved in that activity. So that's what motivates me professionally, and I don't know where that's gonna lead. I'm itching to build something in the future. I don't know what that looks like just yet.
So you'll be springing out into your own entrepreneurial journey.
I will be using the teaching that I've been giving. Yes,
great.
With partners, with friends, the network that I've built. But I'll always continue to do what I'm doing because I really find it valuable.
Great. And in terms of key learnings for you, give me 3 things you've learned in your kind of corporate world.
It's a lot of stakeholder management, and managing stakeholders is pretty much number one. You've got to have people on side. And then it's a lot of technology, emerging technologies, and seeing the value from the corporate perspective of new technologies. We get a lot of buzzwords: blockchain, AI, virtual reality, whatever the next one's going to be. And from my perspective and some of my peers, we see how that's implemented. We see what the downstream value is for a business. So that's another learning. And then it's just the full skill of taking products from 0 to 1, a seedling of an idea, and then what it takes to then take that to first customer and beyond. So, everything from marketing to P&Ls to customer journey, even validating the product at the start. This is all learnings that I've had, and now I'm looking to place that somewhere.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Yeah, you're going to love this, because I'm going to turn the framing round. I've got a bunch of questions for you now,
Excellent.
Rick. I want to explore your entrepreneurial journey and giving back to the audience. So I've got a bunch of questions here. So about resilience of all things. So how do you handle failure, and what does it teach you about resilience in business?
Well, it's an interesting subject, failure. And I'm writing my first book at the moment, Dan, and there's a chapter about failure, because I truly believe that part of your journey in life as a human being, but certainly in business, is embracing failure and learning from it and making sure, obviously, you don't make the same mistake again, but always looking for the lesson in that failure. And that is a way of getting stronger. And the resilience part comes from failure, because it is something you're going to face. That's an ingredient of an entrepreneurial journey.
I could link into the next one, which is about the differentiation between productive work and busy filler work.
Yeah. I think the concept of deep work is something I try to focus on. So in my week, if I plan it, I try to find times when I know I can actually get all desk time, if you like, where I can work through all of the laborious stuff that needs doing. Admin, we have to do it all, but more importantly, focus on some things that really need some thought, and when I'm not interrupted. Because I think when you're running a fast growth business, you've always got moving parts every day. So my afternoon is never really what I planned it in the morning, always changes. But I do know from a personal perspective that I'm more effective in the morning early. If I can get into work at my desk early before everybody else arrives, I can probably do more in that hour than I can do later in the day. So I think it's about focus, knowing what your strengths are in terms of your time when you're more effective, and definitely putting that into your diary. I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs, it's a habit that we need to develop, but also we should literally diarize it, just like a meeting. It's almost like a meeting with yourself and your desk to get that stuff through. Perfect. Discipline, very hard to get it right, but it does make a big difference.
And how often do you reevaluate your goals? So are they aligned more with your long-term vision for personal and business success? What's your breakdown there?
I think as humans, we naturally think in year chunks, right? So we all know that this mad thought about on New Year's Eve, you set your New Year's resolutions, which are, valuable or not, depending on what you want to do. But I think from my point of view, I would look at the year ahead, and I would look at the aspects of my life, whether it's business, personal, financial, whatever that is, the 8 or so areas of your life. It's called the Wheel of Life. I've used it before. You can Google the Wheel of Life, and it gives you those quadrants of your life that you can look at and map out where you think you want to be in the next 12 months. Because I think you need a relatively short-term focus, but bigger picture stuff, like where do you really want to go with your life? What is your life purpose? Takes more time to think about, and probably changes the older you get, because things that were important in your younger years aren't so important in your older years. But look, I think I would admire anybody or advise anybody to definitely have a plan and a target for what you're aiming for, and reevaluate it on a timely basis.
So I would love to dive into business strategy and your leadership around business strategy, because in a place where you're at, fast growth business, it's all moving fast. And so I really wanted to know what you do to cultivate a mindset of adaptability in this world today, which is really very fast moving?
Yeah. I think the first thing, Dan, is you've just got to accept that there's some things you can control, some things you can't control. And your day and your week is going to move about, especially with customers and the way the kind of business cycle and business life works. There's always things changing and moving. So you've got to be adaptable. It's a bit like the jumbo jet taking off from London Heathrow Airport going to New York, and it gets involved in a storm. It gets blown to the left, the right, up or down, but eventually it lands in New York, fortunately. And I think that's what business life is like. And I think if you embrace it and accept it, it makes it a lot easier to deal with. But that flexibility, adaptability is just something you've got to deal with and accept.
So what does the role of self-awareness play in all of this? So when you're thinking about strategic business decisions, how do leaders even develop this skill?
I suppose that another term for self-awareness is EQ, isn't it? Emotional intelligence. And probably in that aspect, it's all about understanding yourself and moving towards things you're good at and focusing in that area and understanding what you're not so good at. And that comes with time. I think anyone starting a business is generally the person that has to do everything from making the tea to the accounts, to the sales, to the product development, whatever it is. Quite often you hear of an entrepreneur who you have to do everything. And it's good that you get a grounding like that. But I think the self-awareness is, what are you good at? Where's your skill? And there's in the company of entrepreneurs that I'm involved with, Barnaby Winter, really interesting chap. He once said to me, only do what you can do. So in other words, don't do anything you're not really good at, but whatever you're best at, do more of that. Easier said than done. But I think self-awareness is understanding where your skill set is and trying to get better at understanding other people that are different to you. Because it takes a team, doesn't it? It takes a whole different bunch of individuals to make something work.
It does. Now I want to just look under the hood of the business that you're running, and if you can tell us about some of the risks that you're facing in the business. But just a slight twist to that is personal improvement and how you can help manage those risks through your own personal development.
So risk is something you face every day in business, be it financial risk, where a customer's not paying you, or a funding risk, people risk, because hiring the right people, sometimes you get winners, sometimes you get people who aren't so good. Having done a few podcasts now, some of the previous people that spring to mind, Amy Hopper, Abby Lazaro, were very well experienced in how they view risk and how they manage themselves in that situation. Right. And some of those examples could be, with me, is knowing how you react to certain things, so knowing what emotionally sparks you or drives you even, and having that kind of self-awareness in that space. But I think for my personal business, things get easier in managing risk, because things that bothered you a year ago, 3 or 4 years ago, don't bother you so much now. It's interesting how you kind of get used to pain or mental pain that things bothered you. But I do think that the element of risk is never going to go away, and you've just got to embrace it, and don't be afraid to get advice. One of the things Abby was saying was, you find people who are very good at certain things and use them. If it's operationals, get a very good operational person, because it de-risks that part of your business. You can only do that when you're at a certain scale, obviously, but these are the things to bear in mind.
Very good. So for the next round of questions, Rick, I would love to just dig into your experience of interpersonal skills.
Yeah.
Obviously a big piece of starting a new business. How do you deal with difficult conversations, and how has your approach evolved from the start to now?
Well, no matter what happens in business, there's going to be times then you've got to have difficult conversations, either internally or externally. And the logic prevails that the sooner you have that difficult conversation, the better. And there's different ways of delivering good and bad news and how to approach it. I think the element of a difficult conversation is honesty and truth, and explaining your side of the story or challenge, but also trying to see it from their point of view. So it's not a confrontational approach. It's much more trying to work together to find a solution. And most people in those situations, Dan, in my experience, will compromise and understand it. You may not always get what you want, but if you leave a difficult conversation where you've kind of led it with integrity and honesty, I think you'll get more respect.
Yeah. And
quite often, just to add, out of some of the most difficult challenges I've had and conversations about or situations, you generally build a much better relationship with your customer, and it kind of can help you downstream. So it's a bizarre one, that, but that's generally what can happen.
And how have you developed this increased emotional intelligence to these interpersonal skills? And how has that enhanced your leadership and enabled you to build strong relationships with your team in the business?
So I did this podcast a while back with a guy called Shyamel about embracing the inner self, and it really kind of surfaced in my own mind some thoughts about that very subject of how we improve ourselves, how we can get better. And obviously experience and time and making lots of mistakes is one area. But what I've also learned is you can learn so much from other people around you, no matter whether they're more experienced, less experienced. It's understanding and listening to the perspectives from other people, and also learning from people that aren't in your orbit, be it reading a biography or reading about how sports people or politicians or other business leaders or friends in your own circle deal with challenges, and taking some of that and absorbing it and trying to put it into your own world. I mean, we are all porous human beings mentally. We should be listening and learning. And the more you can be open to that, I think the more well-rounded you'll be, and it will transform parts of your leadership for sure.
So I want to get into like the next steps and the long-term vision. And a big question is, with the next steps of business and success, how can you make that so it doesn't come at the expense of personal fulfillment?
I think if we're talking kind of about life balance, always difficult to get it perfectly right. I think it's like any muscle that you exercise, it gets stronger and better. But you do need to put guardrails in your life when you're running a business, because you can become obsessive about it. And I don't think being channeled in just one direction as a human being is healthy. I think you do need either interests or good people around you, mentors you can bounce ideas off, or things that can help you escape that kind of day to day. And I think that makes you more well-rounded, actually helps your business. I mean, long-term health and certainly mental health's a big thing now, isn't it? Absolutely. For sure. And we just have to put those guardrails in and try and enjoy the process. A lot of us as humans, we want something now, and if we don't get it, we kind of beat ourselves up that we're not there quickly enough. Or you look at someone else has achieved, and you naturally, human competitive nature compares yourself to it. But there's only one person really in the race, and that's yourself. And providing you're developing and becoming a better person, I think the rest of it is a byproduct. Success will come.
Perfect. There's a last question, by the way, just the last one. What role does ethics and integrity play in your business decisions, and how does this align with your self-improvement, or are they separate?
I think the only thing you've got, Dan, is your word when it really boils down to. And you can make mistakes and you can apologize for them, but you've still got your word. You can be incredibly successful, enjoy the process and give back in other ways. But I think the ability to go, walk that journey of life and have your integrity and respect and ethics intact is so important, because when you do go and meet your maker, which we all will do, you're going to think back to, were you actually a good person? Did you do what you say you were going to do? Did you turn up on time? And were you polite? And did you have respect for other people? Those 4 areas really govern how you kind of charter that journey through life. Dan, it's been a real pleasure to ask you questions and you ask me questions, and we kind of go on that undulating journey to understand each other's mindsets. Your maverick tendencies within corporate world are very impressive. And I think I've learned a lot today about some of the elements of structure, process that corporates can lend to entrepreneurs, but also ways entrepreneurs can kind of expand into that corporate space as well, be it partnership, etc. And some of the questions you've asked me have really made me think about my own internal philosophies and whether I'm on the right track. Hopefully I am.
It's been a pleasure, because I've also learned a lot from taking some notes on the questions. It's sparked my own enthusiasm for entrepreneurship, although slightly scared from some of the answers.
Don't be scared.
But no, I mean, it was a pleasure.
Brilliant.
I'm happy to get involved in doing more of these. Maybe we can have some more people at the table to.
We should do a panel discussion. That'd be really good to get other ideas bouncing.
Yeah, I mean, an AI expert, and I don't know, we've got all sorts of experts to bring in.
Great, thank you very much. Cheers. Appreciate it.